Can you believe we have the pleasure today of having Natalia Lee on the program with us?
I absolutely cannot. This is a catch. We're not worthy. We're not deserving to have.
What a joy!
In our presence.
What a time to be alive. Hello, Natalia. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me.
Of course. We love a good diviner in this space. You know, somebody who a little soothsaying from time to time. See what the future looks like.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially the ones that tell me to go to Puerto Rico. Those are my favorite.
I was gonna say, we love the
Or
opportunity.
Tennessee.
I'm talking over. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, particularly when we took you to task, so you get to come and tell me why I'm wrong, and why Puerto Rico's wrong, and Zamboni shouldn't move to Puerto Rico. It was Tennessee all along. I'm completely incorrect, right? Let me hear you pitch for why.
Oh my God.
He should move to Tennessee instead of near you in Puerto Rico.
I think he would really fit in Puerto Rico, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Why do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe his music fits here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think he would fit. His music fits here, and I think he would. Because island life. I'm sure you know of either both of you or one, or it's kind of a lot of tourists come here, and a lot of people from different islands. I don't know. I feel it would be welcoming, right? I think it would be welcoming, really. And the music fits. You could find a group of people. I don't know. Maybe it's a gut feeling I have, but it just vibes with you. I don't know.
This is why.
So I guess that's why I guess I'm not proving your point. Tennessee is not the place. Tennessee is a good place if you don't want to leave the U.S. If you don't want to make a big change, because it is a big change, and it would be a big culture shock. And you don't. I don't know. Do you know Spanish? Although you wouldn't really need to know much, but you would need to know some.
So I just want to point out. Some. Okay. You got some. Zamboni's good. Zamboni's set from the Spanish. I'm gonna point
that's
out,
what you think until you get me in a room full of Spanish speakers, and I'm like, I got 50% of that, y'all. Yeah, okay.
No, but
I don't know what we talking about in here.
You'll be fine, man. There's so many people that speak English here.
I survive entirely when traveling on international charades and smiling a lot.
Yeah.
Which works great for me.
A lot of
unearned confidence. I use a lot of that.
Yeah. No,
I want to point out, Natalia, that you have just listed the reasons when Zamboni and I were talking about this off call, why he would be a good fit in Puerto Rico. You basically just went down the list of the things we talked about. Music should be a good community for him. He speaks enough Spanish to handle it. You know what I mean? It was literally just 1, 2, 3 like that.
I think so. And he could find communities, there's communities here that are involved in Caribbean music, bomba and all of that, and Afro-Caribbean music. So you'd find a lot of, I think, interesting avenues there. I don't know. I don't want to say networking, but you know what I mean, friends, connections, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, bring it on. Let's go. Let's do it. One of the things that this is something that I had been thinking about for a long time, right? You were trying to tell me don't leave the United States. I think this is how Tennessee came up and this kind of thing, right? And then as soon as you said that, I was okay, but what about Puerto Rico? And
yeah. I don't assume everyone wants to leave the U.S., right? Especially with everything going on, who wants to make a big move, So I'm I know from what I hear, Tennessee, I don't know. It sounds like it has a nice music scene. So it's maybe you could fit there better because it has more going on.
This is modesty. This is modesty. This is the rare modesty happening. I know Natalia's Puerto Rico's better.
Right. I don't think I've ever heard a Puerto Rican be what's better than Puerto Rico? It's Tennessee. Tennessee's got way more going on than Puerto Rico does.
We have entered some kind of strange Twilight Zone world now.
You're right. Oh my God. Anomaly.
Although I will give you this.
I am not being kin to my people.
I will give you this. In this entire conversation, you have taken zero baits to refer to Puerto Rico as part of the United States. We have.
It's true. It's true.
We've
You've dodged
thrown it
every
up
one
once
of
or
those.
twice, and you've been like, no.
Well, I just thought you didn't want to leave the United States. That's all.
That's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, you're not going that far, but it will still be a culture shock. But I mean, it's part of the U.S., man.
Technically, barely,
Yeah.
barely. Y'all don't want to be in. And listen, Godspeed to your national causes. like,
Oh
you
man,
do you.
there's no avenues there. I don't know. Not in this lifetime. I don't know. I'm open to being surprised.
Well, I also want to point out this is really a lot of fun for me because you are two people who I very much enjoy talking to on the regular anyway, and we both are long-term voicemail on Signal or voicemail on WhatsApp correspondence, which is one of my favorite ways of talking about things. But I have known Natalia. How long have we known each other now? Is
my
it
God.
6 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
How did you meet? Was that like through Rune Soup?
Yeah. Well, it was through Ariel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember she told me, "Oh, you have to meet these people that I've met." She was always motivating me to meet more people in Rune Soup, like open up. And she told me about you, Brian. I remember there was a course, and it was like, "We're gonna all do this together, all four of us." And I was like, "All right, I'm included," because I'm never included in anything. I'm always like in the corner, like, "No, see me." So, it was you and my God, the firefighter,
Fireman Kevin.
Kevin.
Yep, Kevin Zalek, who is another person I'd like to get on this show, in part
Yes.
because he and you have some interestingly like same pathways. He ended up Serbian Orthodox.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it would be nice to like hear what's going on, like how everything is.
He's doing good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that's how I met Brian. Through a dear friend and magic.
Yeah. It's
Dear friends in magic. Yes, totally.
Yeah.
And at that point, most of the Rune Soup communication was forum posting.
Yes.
So like we really knew each other through these longer texts, and one of Ariel's many gifts was the ability to put as many words in a forum post as humanly possible.
Indeed.
She could just rock on that stuff.
Her emails, I printed them out. I haven't printed out. It was like, she passed away. I'm printing them all out. They're long. It's like a book.
Long. Yeah, they're a book on their own. And I used to really aggravate her some because she would do these literally like a good essay length response to something that somebody had said, and I'd be like, I don't think so. And then it would just be like the entirety of the response. I disagree, which would then usually result in like another 3-page talk about how I wasn't giving it a serious enough, attention. Then I'd be like, yeah, but I don't know about this point. And then, it's just all day long, just goading her to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started hanging out then and going to the old Tarl cables and hanging out and doing that kind of stuff. And then we've just been like bouncing around ever since. So
yeah, indeed.
Did you guys run into each other have you guys run into each other on Rune Soup very much, or did you just like kind of bounce into each other later
I
on?
remember how it happened. I remember when I was doing I don't know if you remember, Zamboni. I think that was when we first met. I was doing my card deck. I was doing the test run, and I had said to a couple of people, I had announced, hey, I want to do like a test drive, see if they actually read well. And then I was like, I'm not charging much. I just want to see how they would read, right? So let's keep it simple. And Zamboni was one of the ones. And that's how I met him.
You roasted the shit out of my love life that day.
I know.
And I
felt so
and I was
bad.
like, it's as bad as I thought, huh? And you were like, no, it's not that bad. It's just like low key terrible. And I was like, okay, yeah, I got you. Sure.
I was like, maybe he doesn't like me anymore. Oh my God.
No, look, hey, look, the tarot will roast that ass sometimes. That's what you
Yeah.
need, and it is what I
Indeed.
needed in that moment.
It's happened to
And
me several times in like with relationship readings, like, oh my God, do I
Mhm.
really want to say these things? But then, yeah.
Well, I mean, I mentioned it last time, but I will mention it again in case other people don't know. Natalia gave me one of my favorite tarot readings I've ever gotten, which was about my at that time still pending divorce, and the Ten of Swords came up, and and like we're both looking at it, and we both know exactly what this means. Like no one's confused, and Natalia just kind of goes, "Well, it can mean an end to conflict." Just like I was like, you don't have to. We know what's up here. It's fine. Yeah, but it was, it's funny. Actually, this is something I'm interested in both of your opinions on. And Zamboni and I were talking a little bit about it the other day too. The fine line between bright siding a reading, right, where you're pushing to the positive in a way that's different, and a clear eyed reading that leaves room for positivity. So, for example, in that case, that reading of like what's on the table here is an end to conflict. Well, that actually ended up being the case. My ex and I are very amicable. The circumstance is better for both of us. It's actually better for the kid. It all worked out in a way that had a lot of strife in it. But by setting my mind to an end to conflict, I think I opened good possibilities in the future there.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think about like you get a really rough reading on somebody? It's one of those things where you're like, "Oof, this one's tough." Where are our responsibilities in like giving it to them rough, or yeah? How do you deal with that?
Oh, do you want to answer first, Zamboni?
Sure, I can take a crack at it. I One of the things that people always say about my readings on the internet and stuff is that I am brutally honest. And I take this as a badge of honor, not in that I don't like destroy people's hope, but I give it to you straight. I'm not gonna if I see some rough shit, then I'm gonna say something that says I don't like the way that this looks. This looks uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And I think people often appreciate that. One thing that I have, so after I hit my 10,000 readings, right? I've been like trying to hit 10,000, become a master or whatever, right? And so then now that I've got my 10,000 readings, then I'm still doing readings with Sanctuary just because like the money is it's easy money or for me or whatever, right? But I no longer care about keeping that job because I got my 10,000. That was what I had that job for, was for 10,000 readings. And so now I care less about customer service. I care less about making sure that people feel good at the end of it, and I feel more oracular about it. Like I feel like the Oracle of Delphi. Like I don't mind like giving you a riddle to solve or some shit like this, right? Like I feel much more free about that. And I have found that people really respond to it. Like there's a certain sense of like kind of genuine authenticity maybe that people might gravitate toward, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable, even if it's not what they want. And I find that sometimes, like, I mean, the kind of readings that I do there are kind of combative in the first place, right? They're like, there's some kind of bullshit going on with your boyfriend. He's not texting you back, or is he cheating or something? Like I do this reading all the time, right? So there's somebody on the other side who doesn't mind fighting in the first place, who's like looking for a fight a little bit. And so then I give them the like, girl, what do you want from me? And then they're like, okay. And it's like, it turns into something more engaging. So this is something that I have noticed recently whereas before I was like total yes man. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, I understand. And so maybe if we just approached a little differently, like the now coming down hard, I've noticed that like I get the same or more engagement with this.
Yeah, I agree. There is, I think that's why people go to fortune tellers and even mediums, because I've seen it in not just fortune in the context of a fortune teller, I see it in mediumship and, and things like that, where people really want to, like, when you are, I want to say rough, but when you are very frank, and people kind of take you more seriously. I don't know if that's kind of like a masochistic thing on people than going to fortune tellers. Like, I don't know. I've never actually thought about that. I know for me, for readings, obviously I'm going to tell you what the cards say. That's why I like showing the cards and everything. I'm very picky with, like, these are the cards. This is what they're doing. Look at it. Look at the cards. It's not me. Look at the cards. Like, it's not just, I'm not just talking. And so I like that kind of like visual context. It's very important for me. But I also, when I do my readings, I don't just I am frank, and I want to be frank, and I want to tell you what the cards are saying, but I also want to, like, another part of me wants to, I don't know, it sounds cheesy, but I don't know, inspire imagination, like ways to think about things, like, give you something to chew on, maybe, like, let me think about this for a little bit longer, or things like that. So it's not just, that's just me. That's my personal kind of what I prefer, what I lean toward, right? I don't know. It goes with me. I don't know how to explain it. So I am going to be frank, but I also want to, like, bring juices into your imagination, kind of just like activate that part, that it's not just me telling you, oh, he is cheating, and that's it. Bye bye. It's like, well, let's take a look at all these other things. What's going on? Maybe it looks like he's looking to the other side, but kind of like get more things going in the mind, like more connections, more perspectives. I don't. Maybe that's just my Gemini moon.
Maybe. Although I've come to take a really, like, a two-step here, because I like to, you need good no's in order to know where to go. You need
Yeah.
and those are very helpful in determining your own desire anyway. Like, if you get told no,
Yeah.
and you're like, but no, I really want this. Why can't I if that happens to you,
Yeah.
that's really interesting, right? So I have taken my desire to be helpful, and first off been like, no, honest is helpful, first off. But then
Yeah.
secondly, like, then going like, well, what can we do? You know what I mean? And geomancy is really good for what can we do. And so sometimes a single chart will recommend a remedy by itself, or it points directly into some kind of a magical approach, or you throw another chart around. Okay, well, and sometimes the answer is, I'm sorry, this is burned to dust. There's nothing here. Like, you don't go this way. But don't go this way. There are giant bears who want to eat you this way is really, really helpful in the long run, right? But I think, Zamboni, you said something earlier too about, like, not destroying hope. And I think, there's a difference between those two, right? Because I think that's another way we get the people who are the charlatans in the field, right? Where they're like, oh, you got a curse on you. Everything in your life is going to be destroyed until you pay me $250 to do this, this next thing. Like, I'll often tell people before we start, like, hey, I will offer you, like, we're going to do the reading. If there's a problem, we'll do another one where I'm going to offer you something you can do yourself, right? Like, I'm going to offer you a free bit of magic for you to do. I'm not trying to rook you into a system here. But again, yeah, that point about connections and lighting up desires and lighting the mind up, getting these things going, I think that's really important. When did you start reading for people, Natalia? Like, when did that come into your life?
Was it 2016? Yeah, around 2016. It was around 2016. It came into my life after I had my kid. And well, it was in it before, but when I started reading for people was after I had my kid. And I don't know. I just thought, hey, I could maybe do this with other people. And I think I had an Etsy shop, and I've never been really good at kind of promoting myself, or like, some people are like, hey, look at me, you do this. I've never been really good. So I had an Etsy shop, and it was okay. It was like, I don't know, one reading a week or so.
Pretty good actually off an Etsy shop.
For real,
Yeah.
that's dope. The one reading a week is great.
Yeah.
How I met Ariel, through Etsy.
Mhm.
Out of all the readings there, she found me, and she wanted to do a reading. And then from that reading, we just started talking. We just started going back and forth until, I don't know. So, and then from there, like around 2016, I said, I don't want to be an Etsy anymore, because this is like, I have to put in my titles like 500 things, like the categories. Like, it was just really not aesthetically pleasing to me. So I thought maybe I can do a website. So that's what I did.
And what is your website, Natalia?
It is Natalia hyphen underscore hyphen Lee Lee.com. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yes. And so I did the website, and there the readings kind of lessened a little bit, because obviously I didn't have the access to people like, an Etsy, right? It's like a marketplace community. I didn't have access to that. So it was more like word of mouth. And then a little bit later, through Rune Soup, I got more people when Gordon opened up the community, when he started the membership and all this stuff with the forum. Then I got more people. Yeah, I got really interesting readings through Rune Soup, actually. I've made good friends too. Yeah, I can't complain. It hasn't been like, whoa, but I also do other things. It's not something I can dedicate all the time, to, because it's not my main job. So I make sure to keep it there because I love doing it, but I also do other things, right? I paint and draw. And so I don't want anything to kind of take over all these artistic things I want to do, and writing and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, little by little. Little by little, you start, chipping away at those rocks and collecting them, little jewels.
We were talking about Zamboni's love life being a desolate wasteland. And,
oh my God, but that was a long time ago. Maybe it's picked up.
and
Roast my ass. Damn.
That was a long time
Desolate
ago.
wasteland is what this dude said right now.
No,
Wow.
I have hope.
So really
okay? Because
really what he's trying to, it was a long time. It had, I mean, in truth, it has not been the fountain that one might have hoped for. And with this in mind, if any altos feel like getting in my DMs,
I was going to say,
where to go.
This is our standard altos. Please get in those DM pitch moment.
Right. And I did hear recently that somebody heard me say that, and then heard that sopranos need not apply. That's not what I'm trying to say. Okay. What I'm trying to say is get in my damn DMs. Okay. Natalia doesn't want to see me in this place anymore.
We gotta get Zamboni out. No, the real purpose of bringing that up, besides messing with Zamboni, was that you have one of my favorite decks I've ever played with, which is the Ciprianic, Spanish style playing card deck, which is really, really fun. And literally, I was doing a reading for another friend of ours, trying it out, like just playing with the deck and in like beta, basically, and the deck predicted that he would. I was looking at it, and the suits are a little bit different, and I was like, man. And there's it's got a little bit of a. Well, how would you describe it, Natalia? It's got a little bit of a sort of Oracle deck feel.
It does, yeah. It is kind of. I mean, technically, what is that? Kind of like the gypsy, yeah, the Lenormand, like gypsy fortune telling cards. Yeah. Have you seen? There's Lenormand's not just the only one. There's a couple other kind of like the Italian fortune telling cards.
And for those who don't know, like me, Will you explain the difference here? What's special about a gypsy fortune telling deck?
Oh, nothing. Well, I mean, what's different is that it takes a playing card deck, whether it is a brisca. Brisca is the Iberian version of it, of a French playing card deck, right? It has 52. The French, has hearts. What is it? Hearts, coins, spades, and batons. Clubs. Thank you. And so it's just different varieties of playing cards, really. And so what they do, what is done, I say they, but what is done is that they attach illustrations, meanings to each one of the cards, right? Like a Lenormand. And so a lot of it has to do, a lot of the meanings, because we have Lenormand, right? It has like a long tradition, and it continues on, right? And they continue to be iterations. So a lot of the cards in the Lenormand that go with the suit, right? The illustration that goes with the suit already has like a long lineage there, right? And it keeps on being that, the card that goes, the illustration that goes with a letter is the same one. It has a long lineage. But in the fortune telling and the gypsy fortune telling decks, and I say gypsy because there's actually one that's called the gypsy fortune telling deck. You find a lot of varieties, similarities, but there's also varieties depending on the landscape, the country, the context wherein these associations came about. So it doesn't have such a firm, is the right word, firm lineage as the Lenormand. So in the example of my deck, I tapped into that. So what I wanted to do with my deck is, this is what I wanted to do, because I found that this was my argument. Every time I would pick up the Saint Cyprian book and Opuscula Cipriani and all these other books, and I would read the cartomancy sections, and it would be like, man, why has nobody thought of putting illustrations to this? I'm sure somebody must have done it. It just didn't become popular. They probably did it in their house. They sketched it out, and then they just used it themselves, right? And that kept on being my question. Why has nobody done this? Why has nobody done this? Why is it only Lenormand that we see in these associations? Because the Lenormand, if I'm not mistaken, it's the French piquet, I think. So it has the quartz and 7 to 12. Am I wrong? Maybe I'm not sure. But it doesn't have it has the ace. It has the ace, but it doesn't have 1, 2, 3, in the suits. So it's like an abbreviated. And then for mine, I wanted to do time magic. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a deck I wanted to bring it forward to the now. So I went into the work and I said, I need to answer this question. And St. Cyprian was like, you go ahead and answer this question, get to drawing, child. And why has this not come out, It's like, why is it everything Lenormand? Let's look at other traditions. Let's look at other perspectives of us, associating these illustrations with these suits. And from there, I pretty much pulled up from the wreckages of time this deck. So it's really, the intention is fully there for it to be time magic. So I looked at all the work, all the Cyprian booklets that Haitian has published through Jose Legdao's work. I looked at others as well, but it was mostly that. And I compared, okay, this one has this meaning and this one has another meaning. And then I compared each one, and then I started creating a story. And then from that story I created, the deck came about, this illustrations that go with the suits and everything, and the whole narrative of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a fun way to go at it, because the numbers play into it, the numerology plays, but then the images offer you this kind of like counterbalancing or continuing idea. And the reading I did for one of our friends who was about to go hiking was basically he's going to go on this trip, and he's going to receive a message like letters basically. And there's going to be, and I was having the hardest time figuring out what the last one was going to be. Like, what is the message? And there's like 3 candles, right? Like it was like this kind of like look or something along those lines. And he calls me up when he gets done with the hike, and he's like, "You're not going to believe this. I went on the hike. I ran into a guy who had a message for me from a friend of mine. Like they had met on the trail. The guy who was supposed to meet up had met this other guy and had let him a message saying he wasn't actually going to be on the trail. They randomly did meet, right? They got the message. And then the guy gave him 3 joints to smoke on the trail. And I was just like, this deck is too much. This is too much.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, yeah, I remember writing to Natalia being like, I think it's fine. I think you can let it out. I think it's going to do well.
It reads good. Yeah, I think it has done. I'm very happy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the word is. I'm very kind of, I'm not going to say humble. That's silly, but I'm very kind of low key about these things. I try not to be, but I think it has done well, and I wanted it to do well because I was like, saying, Cyprian, you brought this about. So you spread that out, okay? How you want it to spread out. And the people that you want to hold that deck and use it, put it in their hands, And it's done.
And so you're saying that those people can go to natalia-lee.com to get this deck. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
You know what? If I'm not mistaken, the deck sold out.
Oh, snap.
Since everyone was
Y'all is too late.
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
I don't know what's going to happen now. I do have copies that I think I'm going to do something about, maybe put them on my website. So that's a good shout out, Zamboni. I do have a couple copies that I'm thinking of doing that, but I'm waiting a little bit. But yeah, I think it sold out. Last time I checked, because somebody asked me for the link, and I logged in. I was like, holy shit, it's sold out. It's sold out.
It's really weird, the combination of like the spirit getting in your head and being like, I need you to do this right now. And you're like, I need to eat breakfast. And it's like, no, you don't. You need to work on this thing. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be very grumpy working on it if I don't get coffee. So like, chill. So you go through like months and months of that, right? Like that kind of like thing. And then you're like, then the deck's made, and they're like, thanks. You're like, no. Now it's your turn. Now you need to go and like
go work.
go put this thing. I didn't just make it. I can't make everyone buy it. You have to do that part. Like,
Indeed.
And you have to kind of stay on them a little bit to be like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something that satisfies the spirit thing when it's made. They're like, yeah, cool, it exists. And you're like, no. Dissemination is important.
Yeah, indeed. And I have to say, I have no complaints. He's a good patron.
He's a good patron, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Did you ever get wrapped up in the Cyprianic line of things? Did he ever come knocking on your head?
No, I haven't. People have told me that I would love Saint Cyprian, primarily because he is clad in purple, and I also love purple things.
Yes.
I famously have this story where I got into astrology because I love purple things, and astrology books are frequently purple. And so I was like, oh, let me check it out.
Yes. You are a kid in my book then, because I love purple too.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So and the purple is a whole vibe. Like other people who love purple, there's like you see each other and it's like, oh, and then like everybody is like in the same space together. It's super cool. Funkadelic is this way. This is when I started playing with Funkadelic, then that was a thing that I noticed, is that like people would be in all purple everything. The first time I played with the drummer in Funkadelic, he was he had a purple vest and a purple shirt and he had a purple Santa hat on. It was Christmas
I
time.
love it.
And so all I could tell was that homie was fresh. I didn't know that he was the
Yes.
drummer for Funkadelic or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay, my man, like, let's see what he can do. I thought I was like taking him out for a little ride for a second. I was like, let me test him, you know? And then turns out that it's like Funkadelic. It's actually Funkadelic in here. And so, but that was like the vibe is like all purple things, right? And so people have told me that I would love Cyprian, and I just don't really do Saints like that. Like
Right.
I see him out there. Like my Mary game is sometimes together. It's not currently.
Yeah.
That's all.
That
That's
makes
as
sense.
close as I've gotten.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. Like, not all saints are for
That
everyone.
was harsh.
Not all kinds of. It's not. It's not.
No, it's not.
It really isn't. And that's cool. You know it. And when it's like it vibes, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna knock on their door. And when it's
Right.
not vibing, when it's like I don't want to knock on their door. I just have no motivation.
It's interesting though too. There's something about the mighty dead. I do like that term that Gordon will use for the saints. You know what I mean? And we sort of get.
Yes.
And actually, Natalia and I were talking about the saints of all of humanity, right? Like in the
Yeah.
sense that, like, yeah, there's this form for a Catholic saint or a Christian saint to take, and there's this form for a Muslim saint to take that's sort of different, or a bodhisattva to take, but they end up kind of circling around the same thing of like, I'm going to stick around after I'm dead to look after people and make sure that stuff goes down, or and it's a really interesting phenomenon, but I do think it's important to broaden it like that. Like if you think saints are only, because there's good reasons why you're not going to feel comfortable messing with the Catholic stuff, and sometimes with some of the more Catholic-y Christian saints, I'm like, I can't, bro. I'm sorry. Like we don't get along.
Yeah.
Like this is not the way. But then there's other mighty dead who sort of reach through time to grab you and stuff like that. Do you find, Zamboni, it's like the form of the Catholicism that puts you off there? Is there another form of mighty dead that speaks to you in a way like that? Or is it just you're hanging out in the stars all the time, and the stars are your friends, like is that how it works?
Is it planetary? Your focus? I guess it's complimenting Brian's question.
Right. I actually hang out in the stars less than I maybe should. It's like it's my field of study, and I did a bunch of Picatrix magic there for a minute, and every time Venus is in good conditions, and I step my Venus game up, and I've got a strong natal Venus, and so Venus will come through with the blessings for me, and that's real cute. And I made a whole gang of Jupiter talismans when Jupiter was in Sagittarius. Then you've got a whole year of that, and then Jupiter was in Pisces. You got a whole year of that, and then. Not this year, but next year, we're going to start having Jupiter in Cancer. We're going to have a whole year of that. That looks real cute, So like I do this kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to dead, like it turns into something much more ancestral for me. Like I spend time with the ancestors, and I have a sense that like the dead of my lineage have chosen me in some kind of way, in a way that they haven't chosen like my brother, for example, or like the other people around me. I don't know why exactly they have chosen me, and I live like a very kind of charmed life as a result of that.
Nice.
Now, of course, they do kick me out of shit a lot. Right. And they'll sort of uproot me and then be like, no, you go over there. And I'll like cry and weep about it. And then I'll show up and like shit will go perfect when I get to that spot. So I have that kind of relationship with my dad. Those dead belong to me in a way that is like, not quite Cyprian or this kind of thing. When it comes to the saints, like, I don't think it's the Catholicism that turns me off as much as the aesthetic of Catholicism.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because I really like the idea of syncretism. Like
Yeah.
cultural syncretism is like where I live my whole damn life, right? I'm like I'm multiracial and never quite fit into any of the spots, but also like can touch all the different things, right? Like I love cultural syncretism, and Catholicism is great for that. So the idea of Catholicism, and I come from a Christian background, right? And so like even though it's a Protestant background and not a Catholic one, like I have love for the idea of Christianity in that space, especially if I can like re-up whatever's going on or renew. And Catholicism is real good for that kind of thing, for the syncretism, for like just incorporate all the things, like no problem. And so like I'm with it, and then I start hanging out with Catholics, and I'm like, I don't like it here. I don't think this is what I want. So,
Yeah.
so that's been my experience with saints, you know, like just kind of tired of it, you know, and like Renaissance artwork. Like I get it, I know this is nice, but like
if you can't have a fat angel like swimming around my head at all time, like that's all I'm after. I'm just after like really chubby angels and like and decaying food. That's the like two Renaissance things. If you put that in a painting, I'm sold. Just like decaying food and fat angels.
It's like, what is going on? Yeah. Yes. That sounds good. That sounds like an interesting landscape.
Word. Yeah, I recently heard, speaking of cultural syncretism, I recently heard that Taoism is wildly syncretic as well. I was listening to Benabel Wynn talk about Taoism, and it reminded me, the way that she was talking about syncretism reminded me of the way that Catholicism sort of behaves, because Catholicism wants to be the single universal tradition. And so in order to make that happen, then you have to be flexible enough to like bring everybody in. And the Tao is a kind of a similar sort of situation where it's like, oh, it's the way, you know, it's the way. And then some people show up and they're like, is it this way? And it's like, yeah, man, it's the way.
Yeah,
that's one of the ways.
All ways are the way.
Right. There's only the one way, really. So like, I mean, if you found a way, then it seems to be the way, right? And this is a vibe I can fuck with. I like that.
Did you check out her new video? I watched the like on like sort of like reclaiming Taoism, like talking about its from a folk point of view. I just like opened that tab today to dive into that stuff. Benabel Wynn's fantastic, and so I was like, ooh.
Yeah, YouTube has been serving that to me, but I don't know. I haven't watched it yet.
I got started. It was good.
I have to. Benabel Wynn is awesome. She has been a huge inspiration. She did an I Ching course a long time ago, and I don't know. I think I emailed her. We've kind of emailed, and she gifted it to me, and so she's done a lot of really good work that has inspired my way. Her book on food talismans is great.
Yeah.
She has the new I Ching book that I want to get and I haven't gotten. But I haven't seen her new Taoist videos because it's been kind of busy right now with me. But I know that she's doing a whole series to complement her book being published. So it is on my radar. I just haven't sat down. But she is phenomenal. Like I really admire her work, and a lot of actually her ethos in approaching her business inspired me in doing mine when I began. And I told her, I kind of messaged this to her once, just giving thanks. I like to give thanks to people randomly. Hey, I'm popping in here to say thanks. And because she creates out of, I don't know, she just gives. Like she creates, I don't know how to explain it. She's like, look, I wrote this little, booklet of the great compassion mantra. Here are the files. You can have it printed out. Look, I did this Oracle bone script deck. And then she goes explain. Like she is very, like, I don't know. She gives so much back to the community, And that inspired me a lot, and it still does. It still, I try to frame what I do, and it sounds, it doesn't sound financially advisable, right? But I frame in everything I do to arise from that point of giving, of creating something beautiful to share it with others, not out of how much I can gain from it financially. So, yeah, a lot of what I did, what I've done in my website, what I've written, the stories, it's been out of that. And then just allowing, the saints, the guides, the spirits, the universe, God, just open the way for everything else. So yeah, that was me appreciating her live as well. Her work is awesome.
No, but
I really appreciate her.
That's a great thing, though, and the generosity point is really powerful. I think
Yes,
I think that's a common. Like, I think it's easy to get caught in the trap of anticipating that how the wealth is going to come in,
Yes.
where you do it, rather than just acting in a spirit of generosity and creation and spreading and sharing. Like, I think long term, that's what wealth wants to do. Wealth wants to augment and share, and so you're in that spirit.
Yeah.
And, whether that comes with Scrooge McDuck gold piles, or it is just the fact you have a network of friends that you can always go wherever you want. There's some wealth and freedom there. I do want the Scrooge McDuck gold piles. I'm not saying no to that, but you don't want to hoard it, right? And so the spirit of generosity is a part of moving that stuff around. Zamboni's looking at me like he's like, I got 13 things to say to the crazy nonsense.
You've brought Scrooge McDuck up a few times, and I like the idea of piles and piles of money, right? Like gold coins, please and thank you. As many as bury me under the gold coins. Yes, I love it, right? But every time you say that, you bring it up in a spirit of generosity. And my man's name is Scrooge. His whole job is to not be generous, to be stop you from hoarding is his move. So I don't know how he's your go-to.
I just want to
for piles of money in a spirit of generosity.
I just want to show you the mountain that you can be as a river unto your people with. You have to have something to give. That's probably why Scrooge McDuck comes in. I just like the idea of, listen, DuckTales did a number on my head when I was a kid.
Sure. Yeah, look, I feel that.
Doing my best.
I feel you on that. So I have a question for the two of you, though. Because it's come up a couple of times in this conversation already, and it's something that I've been really struggling with, because I have been thinking with magic in economic terms recently, like the idea of economy. So an economy is the allocation of scarce resources which have alternative uses, right? So if you've got some stuff and it can only be used for so much stuff, then you use it on the thing that you use it for and not in other ways. And then when you start to do that, then you have to make some choices, and that is how economies are born, right? And so this is the very same thing as the way that energetics and magic and all the rest of it works, right? So this is how you can get money using magic or love or housing or whatever else. I think that there is a lot for magicians to learn from out of economic models, right? And so I've been really sitting with that and thinking with that. And then recently I heard someone say, I think it was Brett Weinstein said that he's extremely skeptical of the market, not because the market should not be able to reward people who do valuable things. And value, of course, in an economy which is structured by the allocation of resources, scarce resources, which have alternative uses, value is measured by opportunity cost, right? So you did the thing and you didn't do other stuff. And so that means that you value the thing that you actually did over the other stuff, right? So markets should be able to determine value in this way, according to Brett Weinstein. But there is something dangerous when someone produces something that is valuable, but the reason that they made it was for marketability, so that they could make money in the market. Mm-hmm. And so a part of me the like starving artist part of me that's like, all I care about is the truth of the art and the feeling and the vibes and the mythos and all of the, right? Like that part of me really fucks with this. Like I'm no sellout. I do art for art's sake, because art is the most, it's just, I have to, whatever, right? The muse. Part of me loves that. Also, a part of me really likes Beyonce's music, or cultura profética, or something like this, right? Like, like some high tier, like at the point that they are making this music at this point, it's a job to them, you know? And it doesn't mean that it's not music. It doesn't mean that it's not art, but the money is always involved at this point. And so my question to the two of you is the market a corrupting influence when it comes to muse / art / truth? And if so, do we need to mitigate that, or are there other ways for me to think with this? Natalia, you look like you really got something to say here.
No. That's a big question. I don't even know where to begin. Is it a corrupting force? I'd have to say no. No, just because it's a no, but maybe, to a degree, because we also need to eat, right? And I don't know. Oh man, this is so tough. I don't know if I can answer that, you know, because I think about this a lot. I don't think about it so well articulated as you're doing, but I think about it quite a bit, because because I paint, and I'm trying, and I think, should I paint? You know, I think a lot of artists that do this have asked this openly, like in social media, you find it like, do you paint this thing because you know it will be profitable, right? So you paint in this art style or whatever because it will be profitable, or do you just do what you want to do? Ultimately, I think you should do what you want to do, and that will bring its own, you know, its own thing, right? If you have, you know, ideally, you know, you put your good in, you know, you do your thing, the muses and all that, and you put your heart into it, and that will bring its people to it, right? But that is not going to guarantee that you will be Scrooge McDuck with the piles of money. And often, you know, I have to say, this is why it's a corrupting force when it's out of balance. I think that is my arrival at it, because there should be some kind of I don't even know a balance. I don't even know what a balancing factor would be, you know, maybe having different avenues so that but see, this is fraught as well, having different avenues to create your art, so that the people that like it will gravitate, like certain communities, niche communities, but that also creates an issue because you want your art to be out there, right? And so it's like, it's delimiting. So this is a very, very tough question. You know, I don't know how to answer. I don't know. It is a corrupting force, but it is also good to be able to do something you love and sell it, right? And maybe not have piles of gold like Scrooge McDuck, but have, you know, some kind of wealth, you know, because in you selling your art, making money out of it, you are also spreading what you are giving out as well, right? So they have your music in their home, or your art, or whatever you do. So that's also spreading out of their wealth. This also contributes to that person's wealth, right? They have it in their hand. And then, but you also grow in wealth. But I don't know, I don't think I can recognize the borders of where it becomes a corrupting force. I can sort of see it, like maybe with like internet culture and all of that, it creates a homogenous feel to all of this. So it becomes like an obsessive thing. Like I have to do it this way, or I have to do it this way so I can reach people, because it's very homogenous, the internet culture. And I think that's the right word, right? Like,
All one thing.
and yeah. And so I think that corrupts it, but it's also not a bad thing to make money out of your art, whatever that is.
Okay.
I don't know.
I
Maybe
think
Ryan can better answer.
No, I'm gonna play with this, but you got a lot of really good stuff in there. Zamboni, you first, then I'll follow up.
Sure. Well, I think you've touched on something really important there, which is that the market may be a homogenizing influence.
Yeah.
And that could be something, because you know already what people are buying in this moment. And so if you take your so-called pure art and then push it in the direction of whatever everyone else is doing so that you make your money, then that feels like corruption of the purity of the art. Did I hear you correctly there?
Yes. And I think I think you honed in on it. I think it's the homogeneity that the market currently produces in the communities. Yeah. That's why I thought maybe perhaps having niche communities, or maybe having local communities, like making your art available locally in person. That also adds more flavor into, kind of breaking those barriers of homogeneity, yeah.
I think it has been a journey in my own writing and stuff to realize who I am, and then to understand what art I can make and how that works into these other elements that we're talking about here. Yeah. I don't think the market is corrupting for Beyonce, because I think Beyonce is the market. Do you know what I mean? I think she, from the time she was small, was looking to create this kind of thing she was doing singing competitions. She was, on TV since she was like a kid, she was always aimed at this. I also think she has excelled. And so I think she likes doing this. I think she likes doing what she's doing. So for her, it's not corrupting. Now, if I'm going to try to think I'm Beyonce, just one of the weirdest things I've said out loud today, but if I'm going to be me, but pretend to be Beyonce, that's a corrupting thing, right? Because now I don't know my own level, and I don't know where I want to go. You see people in like fighting stuff. You see guys like walk in and think they can take on the champ, and you're like, you are not the champ. You are, So actually, here's a personal story with that. So I can handle myself pretty well, but my teacher, my first sensei, was really a real good competitive fighter, right? Just like he had that in him. And he pulled me aside one time. He's like, don't be a competitive fighter. You don't have what it takes to actually be a top ranked person. You're just going to get yourself hurt. He's like, you have what it takes to be an excellent corner, like to be someone who trains people to fight. You would be great at that. And I had a similar revelation with poetry, in that, like, what is popular right now in poetry, if you can even put it that way, I want no part of. I have no interest in it. I can write it, but I intensely.
Are you sure you don't want to go diss J. Cole? Because now's the moment.
No, I'm not doing any of that shit. No. But that's not what I want to do. And so it was in realizing that what I actually am, what is truer to me and my vocation and my place in this planet, is to write spiritual, magical poetry. Like to work in that part of poetry that has been largely neglected in English in the last 50 years, right? Yeah. Now, I will tell you, I have made more money from my poems than any of my friends. it's not enough to live on, because poetry is poetry's its own particular weird game, right?
Yeah.
But following that path and doing things they wouldn't do because they have legitimate desires of their own. A lot of them want to be academics, so they want to write academic poetry because this also that's them, right? They're being them. That doesn't pay you except in professorships, right? Doesn't pay you in money for the poem. So I think one of the things when people talk about, oh, the market's corrupting, is to really say, what you were getting at there, Natalia, is where are we in our communities? Who are we writing for? Who are we making art for?
Yeah.
And what is our art to offer? Yeah. There is a codicil that I want to follow up on, though, that I think it is then important to also make your message fit to what people can hear or what people like. So I'm not a purist in this sense, but I want to deliver something to people that they can actually want and thrive with. Yeah. Right? So like a lot of, again, this is a poetry thing, but a lot of poetry is like, so I went to a reading at Harvard one time, and a girl was writing about how hard it was to live in a gated community. And like,
okay,
I'm sure there are problems there, but you know, the level of oppression she was implying was a part of her regular life seemed out of kilter with our current surroundings. And there's a lot of like doing artsy stuff to show off that you're artsy, and the only people who like it are the people in your little set. Yeah. And then you get mad that nobody else likes it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you only wrote it for your little set. You can't be mad that you're not, you know, in everybody's, you know, back pocket at this point, right? Because you didn't write it for everybody to put in their back pocket. So I think there's something to think with about, you can get too precious with your own stuff. You can make it too much about yourself and not for the community. Yeah. And I do sit with that. And I think about, you know, the other than human community as well when I'm trying to do art. Like, I did it with my hands again. The thumbs up came up. The AI was like, I agree. Other than humans, right for me. If people don't watch, if people just listen to it, the thumbs up came up. That's
incredible.
But so I think that, you know, when we get too much into the trap of I am the artist and I am this way and people should love me and why don't they love me, and it's like, well, you're only talking about yourself. So maybe that's not enough to offer everybody.
That's a good point. I think that's a good point. So it's not the corruption arises out of the individual, and then from there spreads, I guess, is what you're going for. So each one is responsible. So each artist is responsible for how they contribute or don't contribute, how the field is corrupted.
And I think you may have to take a good hard look at your society and say, are they going to value the thing I'm going to make, and how do I feel about that? Right? Yeah. You know, I'm okay having a day job, right? So that I don't have to conform my poetry to something that would get me a professorship. I don't want a professorship. I don't want to write that kind of poetry. So I gotta feed the kid. So okay, I'll do a day job and I'll devote, but I want a day job that allows me to do my art, right? Like I'm not happy with just anything. I still have to be able to do my art. So, you know, but Zamboni, you play music, which is something that people actually enjoy, as opposed to poetry. So, you know, you're closer to a popular medium in that sense, right? Like you're engaging with a more popular medium. So how does this land for you? This kind of circle we've come back around here. Yeah, well, it's so, you know, the enjoyment piece is so interesting, I think, because I do make music that people enjoy. They almost never actually put it on. And this is actually something that I run into with bandmates a lot also, like getting people to actually show up to rehearsal. You will have so much goddamn fun if you just come to rehearsal. I promise we're going to have so much fun. And then people come and they have so much fun, but most times they don't come at all, right? They just like cannot be bothered to get out of bed, right? And so this gets
into the whole like marketing aspect of it, you know, like it has to be sold to people, which feels grimy, right? Like as soon as you're like, oh, I'm gonna go get in front of everybody and be like, don't you want to buy my shit? Don't you want to press play? Go press this link that I told you to press, or like something like that. Then it starts to feel song and dance. It starts to feel like a minstrel show a little bit, right? Yeah. So I've got a lot of thoughts about that I don't necessarily know how to say exactly. But one of the things that I've been thinking of while you all have been talking is the kind of by the way situation. So I don't know if this is true for writing poetry, but one of the things that I've found in playing music is that in order to play at a professional level, you need to play at a professional level regularly. You need to be around people who are killing, and you need to do that on a regular basis. And so this is a good reason to get a job on a cruise ship, or like if all you're doing is you're like playing Leonard Skinner, you know what I mean? You're and everybody's like, ah, like as soon as you play Sweet Home Alabama, like the very first 2 seconds of that song, everybody loves it. The whole place is lit. It's black people love Leonard Skinner. Suddenly it's like a whole thing, right? And so, but if you get a job doing this, then it keeps your chops together so you can actually play what you want to play. So I think that's really interesting. But I've been thinking about so one of my favorite musicians in the whole world is the horn arranger for James Brown and Parliament Funkadelic. His name is Fred Wesley. And so he's a trombone player and super killer. And so he wrote a book called Sideman that was like amazing. It changed the course of my life when I read this book. It was really, really dope. But so he wrote this book where it's like a memoir. He's like talking about his experience. And so as a youth, he wanted to play jazz. He was like really into playing jazz trombone. That's how he wanted to live his life. And then he found himself with a gig playing with James Brown. This is a very good gig. Maybe I should take this gig. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so he goes out and he's doing James Brown stuff. And then George Clinton shows up and he gets on that train and he's doing Parliament Funkadelic and then Bootsy, and he's doing Bootsy's Rubber Band. He's doing all this stuff, right? For like 25 years, he's out and he's doing funk. What he really, in his heart, what he wants to do is jazz, but funk is like making his money, and he's like got a coke habit now. So maybe I need to like keep on doing my thing and all this, right? You know what I mean? And then, so throughout that time, he made some of my favorite records that exist. And then after that, he like finished out that sort of thing. And then he made a jazz album. So he's like 65, 70 years old or something like that. And he makes a jazz album. And it sort of sucks. It feels like funk players playing jazz, right? It doesn't feel like jazz players playing jazz. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I've been, there's he like got into the market, you know what I mean? And he made good money and great music doing this thing that was extremely marketable in this moment, right? He got on board and funk was happening, and there was a zeitgeist, and he like he rode the wave and he did his thing, and he made great music and he made great money. But he kind of lost sight of his dream a little bit, and then lost an ability to touch what he was trying to do before. Yeah. And I feel so very conflicted about this now.
It's a conflicting story.
That is a conflicting story. And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because is the story about a jazz man who lost his way, or is the story about a funk man who couldn't accept who he was?
There you go. Mm-hmm. It almost seems fated, you know, because this is what landed. I don't know. Yeah, it's something bittersweet. Actually, it's very bittersweet.
I wonder. So for my reading on that, and I haven't read the book, and I don't know how he feels about. I'm going to tell you how this other man's life should have gone. But it feels like the spirit of funk there, right? Like lifted him up. Mm-hmm. You know, so when I hear the tragedy I hear there is that he couldn't realize he was a funk man.
Yeah.
You
Sure.
know, um,
Yeah.
and so is that the market, or is that just that was the spirit that was alive? You know what I mean? Because like,
Well, so
yeah,
that's part of my point is that but I started with magic and economic models could well be the same thing, right? And so spirits are alive and well in the marketplace as much as any other place, right? As much in the market as in the temple. There are spirits
right.
in both of these places. And so like maybe I don't know. I don't have any good like causal ways of thinking about things here, but like something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I agree with Brian. I don't know. It does seem sad. I've been watching. It's funny that you're asking this question. Recently, I've been rewatching. I don't watch a lot of TV, so I don't risk a lot of watching crap TV, and I tend to do a lot of rewatches. Right. So there's this show called Mozart in the Jungle. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've. So I'm watching it again, and it's at that point where he's like, Mozart, the main character, the maestro, um, he he's struggling with this exact same thing. It's like, is it the money or do I follow the art? And then he receives like these visions, these moments where he speaks to the spirits of the composers, right? And he gets and it's at that point, it's so funny that you say that. It's at that point where he gets a commission to go somewhere to do Mozart's Requiem. And he's like, I don't want to do the Requiem. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not ready for that. And he's torn because there's a lot of money on the table. And then he sees the spirit of Mozart shows up to him dying. And he's like, you're losing track, my boy. Like, you're doing the wrong thing. You're going the wrong way. And he's like torn about this. Like, oh my God, what do I do? And then the spirit disappears. It's like, wait until the next one comes. And the next spirit that shows up is Liberace. I think it's David. And he's like, what? What? And Liberace's like, you don't, what was the quote that he said? He's like, don't compose a spiritual struggle. Just play the music, man. And he's like, I can't do this. Like, what are you like? He's just torn with himself. He doesn't know how to move forward and make music with this conflicting issue, either the money because the orchestra needs it, because you need to pay your rent, or, or you follow the music, the muse, the heart of it. It's, I don't even know that I have an answer. I think each one, like, the I forgot his name, but the musician that you just mentioned, he followed his music, and he whatever it landed on his lap, and he ended up in that, he kind of deviated from the path and didn't go to the path of jazz. Like, everyone for themselves has to answer this question and choose a path. There's no clean cut, you know.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just made me think of something there too. I think there's another case where the desire work is very important. Surprise, surprise. But like,
No.
but what do you want? Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you really want? And there's ways to make a ton of money doing exactly what you really want. And there's ways to make no money doing exactly what you want. It's what are you willing to take on? What are you willing to accept? I used to think about Jake Stratton Kent had this thing about like being a magician meant you should never be unable to go where you wanted to go. Right now, and that wasn't a thing for him about like having a ton of money, because he kind of lived a like low key, like real, like, gutter punk kind of lifestyle his whole, punk scholar kind of setup his whole life. but he's like, but I can magic a bus ticket to anywhere I want to go. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that was how he wanted to live. He was living in a way that he felt freed him to do his studies and have the pleasures he wanted. And he didn't have to go to work. He didn't have to go do that kind of stuff. To some degree, I'm making the choices I'm making because I want to have a son and I want to take care of him, right? And I want to set up a world where I can have a home base to work from. That's a sort of space for people to come to. So that poetry wasn't going to do that. I also want to write magic poetry, right? So we have to balance them, but I think the either or is a tough dichotomy because our desires are a little wider than that sometimes too, right? Yeah. And I think we're taught that it is all or nothing. I think we're not taught how cool it could be to be a, regionally successful jazz musician. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually heard the end or like the beginning of a Terry Gross interview with St. Vincent yesterday. And which is also funny because Wyatt was like, why is she asking such horrible questions to this very nice lady? Which I thought was like a cool take on her anyway. But like she got started because her uncle and aunt were traveling jazz musicians. They were never big. Do you know what I mean? But they toured and they were going all over the place. And so Terry Gross was like, oh, did it really get rid of the romance of the road? You know what I mean? Traveling when you were like 16 with your aunt and uncle, like going around places and stuff. She was like, yeah, except they took me to Japan. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one knows who these people are. They're not famous, but they were good enough at their music to tour Japan, right? Like, so what do you want, right? Like, what is success in that way?
Yeah.
This reminds me of that economic principle. There are no solutions, only trade-offs.
Yeah.
And everyone has to answer that for themselves, what that means, just like what wealth means, because for someone, Scrooge McDuck with piles of gold is wealth. And for others, it looks a little bit different, It really does. And so, like the example you gave with Jake Stratton Kent, you know what I mean? So it's each one has to answer this for themselves, how they navigate it. That's why it's tough work. That's why it's a lot of working with desire, what we really want, what really is born from our hearts to give, to do, to spread, to create.
You've put me in a place, though, of asking the two of you a follow-up, which is, okay, so this was started with a conversation about magic and economics. So what do you feel like is the funk of magic right now? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is this stuff that people are riding the wave of? Like, we're all artists, but we're also all magicians, right? We are participating in a particular kind of art that some people think is having some kind of a renaissance, that people are paying more attention to than they were 30 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you like? The question for me is actually more interesting in two ways. One is like, what do you think is sort of happening, or what are you excited about what's happening right now? Well, like, what do you like? It's not like, oh man, everybody's trying to curse the moon. I won't be negative about that. Like, it's more like, what do you like that you see around you? And also, what do you like that you're doing, right? Like, what do you like that you're being a part of in magic? Broadly defined, divination, spell casting, talking to trees, whatever.
Wizard memes.
Yeah, wizard memes. Excellent. Mm-hmm. The true gospel of our time.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think that memes are the greatest art form of our generation, for sure. Did Natalia say she was going to the bathroom?
She said, screw you guys, I'm out of here. That's a bad question.
Right? No, I just talked right over her.
No. I have to I'm still connected. I have to let the cat out because she's kind of going a little crazy here.
Oh yeah.
She's been tapping me like, let me out.
This is the real witchcraft life is having to let
Right.
cats out when they tell you things, or having to respond to the whims of animals. They're like,
Yeah,
you should
right,
do this
right.
thing.
Because once they start talking to you, then they're like, "Oh, you can hear me, right?"
Right.
Like, yeah, I didn't know that I signed up for this.
I got a relationship starting up with a skunk nearby, and it's gonna get rough. It's gonna get
Oh
rough.
no.
All right, I let her out. She was like, "Thank you. I wanted to eat."
Holler. Love it.
I think Zamboni should answer the question first.
I did. Wizard
You
memes.
did?
I was being completely
wizard
serious.
memes.
That was not a joke.
Okay. Because I don't think I feel I am up to date on what's going on. Magically. I know what I like, what I'm excited about. Like, I don't know what's cool, right? I don't even know. I don't think tarot is cool anymore. I mean, there was a time when a lot of people were doing a lot of videos on what is it called, unboxings and things. And I don't think that's in the field anymore. I don't even know. Astrology, I guess, is always cool. What has me excited is, stories about the constellations. So I'm trying to, writing, drawing. I have like 3 pieces I've been trying to finish for a very long time. And my intention was, like, I have a lot of ideas going on, and that has me excited, like finishing these pieces, because I wanted to do kind of like prayer cards, or kind of like talismans you can carry around. So like draw them and have like a prayer in the back or something. Just something along those lines. And I've been getting really into astrology, but via the way of stories and constellations and the myths and stuff. Really, really into that. And that has me pretty excited. And I have to thank the moon, because I've been doing like lunar mansion stuff, and the moon is always really good at showing, look at the stars over here. What are their stories? And that's their loud card. That's about it. I don't know. Reading. I'm reading a lot of Sufi work, and just that kind of stuff. Soon I will be dipping my toes into like that kind of stuff, like maybe do some like word magic, or I don't know, talismans, like yeah.
Natalia's
But
hitting
I'm
me with a
not
look
there
of like,
yet.
why'd you ask me this? Why did you
I
ask me this
know,
on?
I know. I'm like, I'm still doing the same stuff, I'm still drawing. I read a lot. I read too much, and sometimes I have too many things going on in my head, and that's why I talked to Brian. I'm like, hey Brian, look
What
at
are
these
you
thoughts.
what are you excited about for the Sufi stuff? Like what's got you grabbed there? Because that's interesting. It's, listen, if we're talking about, again, sacred magical texts, it's not wizard memes, but they did write a lot of stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And actually, honestly, they're closer to the wizard memes. Like Sufi poetry is pretty like snarky. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's got some real humor in it
indeed.
too.
Indeed. I have been, so there's a lot, Brian. That is a very loaded question. Do you know how many books I have that I'm like working on, that I'm like a lot, um, about the Sufi stuff?
So it's
I
not
don't
just the
know.
spinning around in a circle bit, because
It's not.
that part
No,
always made
it's
me throw up.
not. Yeah, no, no, no. No, I've tried it. No, it doesn't make me throw. You definitely have to go slow. I don't know how people do it fast. Um, I guess practice with everything, maybe. But no, it's not that. I don't know. I think I also want to write.
Hmm.
So what has me excited about it is that it opens up my imagination and my thinking to write and tell stories. I want to tell stories. I want to tell stories. This is my argument, and we have arrived at it. We need better stories. Point
Oh, that's
blank.
interesting.
We need better stories as a peoples in this planet Earth. And by that I mean not erasing all the old stories. I mean we need better, we need to like revive better stories. We need to tell better stories. We need to word and articulate better stories because it is not good. It is not good. And what is good, I don't know. I can see it. Yes, there are good things like with everything, but we each need to do our part in telling better stories, whether that's through art, through music, through, astrology, through painting. We need better stories. So that's kind of where my theme is at, right? That's why I think I've gotten really into the constellations and the myths and thinking with them and reading different versions of them. And I don't know, I really believe we need, I want to
So
be a part in bringing forth better stories.
I'm going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to give you time to think about it.
Yeah.
Which is, I would love to hear a story you think is a better story. I would like to have story time with Natalia,
Oh my goodness.
where you tell us a little story. But I'm going to give you a second to talk about it, but to think about it. I'm going to talk to Zamboni. I'm going to cover for you for a little bit here. But you like one of the constellation stories would be great. Something that's jumped out at you that you got excited about, that you're like, this is a better way to tell this story, something like that. And what I wanted to say first is that like I actually really appreciate you bringing Zamboni the sideman story in, because that's like a really interesting thing that's pulling at this for me and giving me some like sense of longing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
one of the reasons why I like that story is because it doesn't sit in the either or category. It's not like he's a sellout and so he's terrible. It's like, oh, this is like, it's we kind of like this. We kind of like how this went. So like, and he got all his money, like with, but like also didn't get to do the thing that he like had his heart set on. And so how do we feel about this? And that kind of like nuance. I love that kind of thing.
I do too. And the like, is it a win? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Kind of, and even the stuff that's hard. And again, I haven't read the book, so I'm sure there's a lot of hard stuff in there, but it's like, even the coke habit isn't the traditional narrative of like the depressed heroin stuck jazz player. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a different take that he seems to have still been able to make amazing music and then, make okay jazz at the end. But like, like it's like it didn't impede him in a way that sometimes those narratives inside the other narratives add a tragic component. Do you know what I mean? Like it really does seem like it was like, this seems like a pretty good life of artistic achievement, but maybe not, So I really like that. And
between the cocaine and the LSD, they did some great things with that. With they got some good ideas with that.
Those over spirits were working in that. They
really were.
Yeah. Yes.
I had a period where I was on acid for about 2 years. Just like more or less continuously, and I listened to a lot of Funkadelic during that time, and 12 out of 10 would recommend. It was great. Music was bomb.
I need to revisit it.
I really understood it, you know what I mean? Like when on an acid trip you put on that Funkadelic and you're like, oh, that's what they meant.
This is what you're talking about. Yeah, I too see the starship coming down. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Oh man, yeah. He's not one of my favorite humans. He's kind of a bad human. But one of the stories that I liked of like artistic achievement was the poet Wallace Stevens, who did not really get going until he was in his 40s, 50s. Like his first book gets published at that point in time, and it's beautiful. He's one of those rare people who most of his nastiness doesn't get into his work. You read the work and then you find out he was a bad human. You're like, where did this come from? Very surprising separation between the two. But the idea that like he just kind of toiled away for years and then just one day produced a book that was national book. You know what I mean? Like everybody, it just changed everything, changed the game overnight. And there's something really inspiring about that kind of stuff. He also has one of my favorite Hemingway stories, because Stevens was just like a kind of fat businessman, and he got drunk when they were in Key West, and he decided that Hemingway had insulted him somehow. So he went to Hemingway's house and knocks on his door and calls him out to box in the street. And Hemingway was like, great. And just like came out and just knocked him out, laid him in the street. It was like, I'm going back to dinner. You know, it wasn't even like a fight. He was just like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, happy to oblige. And just like, you know, and then all of Stevens's poet friends were trying to get him out of the gutter. And he's just like, how did it go? And they're like, not good, Wallace. It was not. It's not how we wanted to spend our evening. So hopefully talking about overly arrogant poets who get themselves knocked out has given Natalia enough time to bring us to story time.
Man, I don't know. Well, there's this one story that I have been sitting with, playing with in my head for a while. And I wrote a little bit on it on my website. And it is the story of, it's two. It's the story of Ganymede, and then the story of Prometheus and Epimetheus. And I've been kind of playing with that, kind of like two-faced, two sides of the same coin. You know, you have the Prometheus figure that brought fire for humans against the law that was set, and then you have Epimetheus. And in a lot of the places I've found, and I think if I'm not mistaken, the name, like, he's associated with the fool. So Prometheus is, I believe, foresight, and then Epimetheus hindsight, or maybe I'm mixing them too. But Epimetheus is the fool. He marries Pandora, even though his brother Prometheus says, don't do this. And Zeus gives him Pandora, and gives Pandora a clay box, a clay vessel, which I think is curious, because that's what I've been thinking about, clay vessel. That's where, like, I kind of united those stories together. Ganymede, the poor, the clay vessel, but he's also in jail, really, up in the heavens with the gods. He was stolen there. And but then Pandora, the first woman, has the clay jar, and Epimetheus marries her. And on opening the box, all sorts of misfortunes come out, right? And it's I really feel there's like a play there on woman, on Eve, right? On woman birthing all these so like Lilith kind of interplay there. But I also feel that it was, I don't know, there's something kind of poetic. There's a lesson there. See, my context is whatever it is we're living through right now, right? And I feel there's a beauty there. For me, the way I see it, the role model, the one I should look toward as, look at you, you badass, is not Prometheus. It's actually Epimetheus, the fool, because it's almost, I don't know how to explain it. Like, tragedy is part of the world. Sorrow is part of the world. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. And so it's almost like, who are these people to I don't know how to explain it. I'm still kind of working it out of my head, this story, but it's almost kind of like this equilibrium that is birthed through the opening of this jar.
Mm.
Through the opening of this womb, because it's not just this linear kind of Promethean endeavor, always aspiring and going forward, this progressive kind of like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, here we go, I'm gonna do this thing, fire, and he obviously suffers the consequences. But Epimetheus is it's like this humbling story of the fool, that it's like, what do you do in the face of tragedy? What do you do in the face of the inevitable? I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for articulation. And it's like, this is also part of the world, It had to, the box had to open, and there's no looking forward. Epimetheus is not the one looking forward and saying, I'm going to make this plan and I'm going to steal this fire back and I'm going to do this to help. Nothing. It's just like, I am completely immersed in this moment. This woman has just opened her womb and I am with this woman. I am immersed in this situation. This is where I am. And there's this, I don't know, this kind of, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but there's something beautiful in that I have been playing around in my head that I can't quite fully, I'm working toward articulating it properly because I do want to write about it, but that's the story that that's become very close to my heart, actually. Yeah.
That's so in the lens of like telling better stories, that's a really interesting one to pull on. So particularly for magicians, right? Like we've had 400 years of Prometheus propaganda as like the magician is the one who steals the fire, who risks the wrath of the gods, and like this is actually a very important story to me. Like this is something that is a part of how I view my role as a magician. And like when I was a kid in like Latin class, Prometheus was the name I took. They make you take little Latin names because it's very much that like who's on team human, right?
Yeah.
However, there's a really interesting, what your story stirred in me was this interesting moment of like kind of a joke and then also something Prometheus was missing. So like the name meaning forethought is kind of funny, right? Because you end up with your chained to a rock with an eagle eating your liver every day. Like, didn't see that one coming, and depending on how you read the story, he did, and he accepted the consequences, or maybe he didn't, you can play around with that. Right.
Yeah.
But the idea that instead of seeing these as two different ways, or instead of seeing these as two completely separate stories, they're one story about tragedy and how do you deal with fate.
Yes.
And Prometheus rages and steals and tricks and does this sort of stuff and ends up chained to a rock and having a bad day. And Epithemius stays present in the way you told it. I really like the way you told it. He stays present for the birth of the world. He stays present for all the things, to go back to Taoism, the 10,000 things, right?
Yes.
That comes forth. And he witnesses and receives this. Mm-hmm. He doesn't remove himself from it.
No.
But both of them are faced with the beautiful tragedy of existence.
Yes.
Right? And they kind of end up in a very similar place, bound to a set of circumstances, either this beautiful, this woman and this creation, or this rock and this liver-eating eagle. Like you get, you're bound to these fate elements. And as you say, there's a beauty. I think I like this as a tell better stories because I've been conditioned to think the only beauty in the story is Prometheus.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
But now it's like, oh wait, actually there's another beauty here to incorporate. There's more than one beauty at work.
And it's because it's just something, I guess it's having to do with like what I've been reading, what I've been thinking with, but I have chosen to I have said no to, I have negated, I have said no to the Promethean story because I think it is, I think this is what it got us. Well, this is what it got us, the good and the bad, but this is what it got us. And by that is, none of these two stories are without suffering, right? So Prometheus, this kind of, and you can say, yes, savior of humanity, but it's kind of, what is the word? It's not ego-driven, it's another one. Self-centered, like, I will do this, And then the other one is like, he's a fool. He's like, no, man, I'm just going to be in the moment. And I'm going to marry this lady. It's the first lady. And I don't know. I think there's more strength there because it's hubris to assume that you can go beyond certain bounds, It's hubris to assume that you can just go projectile, progress, without looking at the other face, And so this story has become very close to my change, my ethos, my path. I don't know. It's like, what do you do with tragedy? What do you do with fate? And and Prometheus points at something I really, really dislike. And it's human exceptionalism, and I think that's the right word. It's like humans are above it all. Humans are above it all. And that's it, But we disregard the complete living field. All of it. Because it's just that kind of projecting missile outward, like I'm going, and I've just said no to that. Yeah. So I've kind of learning to sit with the wisdom of Epimetheus and not assuming that humans are above it all.
One of the things I think is funny there is, Prometheus is often connected to a sort of Luciferian figure, right? Like, that they're elided in a way that is, interesting.
Yeah.
But of course, Milton has Lucifer say, non serviam, right? Like, I will not serve. What's really funny is you're taking a satanic turn here and you're saying, no, I say no. I say no to the story you're telling me I have to. Do you know what I mean? You're refusing to accept the reality that's been handed to you.
I say no.
Which is this interesting epithemius as satanic rejection moment too. Which is, it's interesting.
It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit here and reject that and not try to articulate. I'm not even going to try to articulate this tragedy. It's like, let's just sit here for a moment and just take in this situation.
So okay, now I want to ask Zamboni the kind of hard question he asked us at the beginning, which is, if we take that kind of lens of like, so we're being told stories about the market, being told stories about, or the market itself tells stories, right, about opportunity cost and this kind of stuff.
Indeed.
And it tells us stories about art and what's valuable and what's not.
Indeed.
If we take the lens of a non-Promethean story, a sit-with story, there are bounds story, how does that connect to the kind of stuff you were talking about earlier about corrupting influences of the market, or even just how we value what we value inside markets? Like, how does that spark a similar kind of like, how do we reject but stay with, right? Like, how do we reject but stay with, I guess is the question. I'm kind of trying to bounce
the corrupting influence, reject but stay with the corrupting influence of the market, you mean?
corrupting influence or just the market as a whole thing, right? Like I'm not sure you can totally reject the market anyway, right? So you have to sort of accept on some level that this is how the world works.
Yeah.
And it creates certain bounds.
Yeah.
But like, you know, to some version of the story, Beyonce is Prometheus, right?
Yeah.
She is soared high above, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we sit with this other component of, like as Natalia said, that there are, as well, actually, as you said too, there are no solutions, there are trade-offs, right? Is there are trade-offs the epithemia solution to the Promethean? You can have whatever economy you want, growth continues forever. Like how do you see that kind of connection there?
Sure. Well, so before I begin, I would like to say that I don't know the stories we're talking about. So I've heard about Prometheus in the Fire. I think you said Epidemius. I don't know. Huh?
Epimetheus?
Epimetheus? Yeah. I don't know this story.
Yeah.
So I can't
it's his
speak
brother.
to that.
Yeah.
It's his brother? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's go ahead. Like, so Natalia, maybe like, so Epimetheus is Prometheus's brother. They're both Titans.
Yeah.
And, you know, where Prometheus attempts to steal fire from the gods, look out for people, do this kind of stuff. Epimetheus, who is hindsight, like you were right about that, Natalia. It's foresight and hindsight, right? He doesn't act ahead. He instead gets pulled into the Pandora story.
Yeah.
And so when she opens what the gods have, the box, I always heard it as a box, by the way. I really like it as a clay vessel. That's also like a big difference.
Reading on some like Greek, just snooping around some sources. It's Zeus. So it's funny. So Prometheus, from what I understand, obviously these stories, they were mostly told by, you know, kind of word of mouth, you know, so and then now we have transcribed them. And so, but there are also different nuances in each one, just like in the Ganymede story. In some of Ganymede's stories, he has specific tools, which is something I also want to get into. Their tools. But in the story, Prometheus is Epimetheus's brother. So I see them a lot like two sides of the same coin, actually. Prometheus, Zeus had made a rule that some humans were suffering. And Prometheus was like, no, I have to help them out. And I'm going to go steal fire so that they can warm themselves. And so he steals fire and he goes against Zeus's orders. And Zeus finds out and condemns him to be eaten, his, liver, by the eagle on a crag, on a rock. And then Epimetheus is his brother, and he's kind of not in the picture until Zeus says, hey, look at this lady, Pandora. Because Zeus, I believe, introduces him. This is the first woman. You know, what's up? Would you like to marry her? And he's like, yeah, sure, man, I like it. And Prometheus is like, no, don't do that, man. Don't do that. That's shady. Don't trust Zeus. And Epimetheus is, he's like, no, I'm not going to follow your advice. I think this is good. And he marries her. But Zeus gives Pandora the clay jar as a wedding night gift, which I really feel it's the womb.
Yeah.
And gifts the clay jar. And Pandora's like, look, I got this box. and she marries Epimetheus. And then from there, somehow the box opens and she births sorrows. And she births all the evil spirit and all this stuff, like strife and things that happen in the world. And pain and suffering.
The last spirit or gift in the box is hope.
The one that doesn't leave.
Yeah, that's the one that stays. Is hope.
That stays.
But but there's a really interesting play with that in that, like, is hope, some people read it that hope is the greatest curse, right? That you are bound by the world of tragedy that's been birthed, and to make it worse, you are hopeful that it could be better. And then other people read it as the balancing consolation, right? That, like,
I think that's such a modern like take, to be quite frank. It just reads to me like a college level take. Oh my God, it's such a like a nihilistic, oh God, hope is so horrible. And they're just gonna wait at the station for Godot. You know, it's so stupid. It's so immature. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
It's not my opinion that hope
No,
is
no,
the
I
torture.
know. I just like let all this out without like thinking, wait, this is live. This is happening. It's just so like we're past that point. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, no, no. I think hope is all we have, and that is okay. Like it's like it's just in the perspective of how you put it. It's like, oh, life is such a tragedy. Why am I gonna hope? Oh my goodness. It's like, oh God, just get it over. Like, get over it already. Grow up. Like point blank, in life, there is pain, there is suffering, there is joy, there is love, there is hate. This has nothing to do with like, I'm hoping for a better future. Just forget about all that. Every day you wake up, you do this shit, you do this other shit. There's pain, there's suffering. You're gonna, cut yourself. I cut my finger off the other day cooking. All these things are gonna happen. We don't have to ascribe these like philosophical things to them, like, oh my God, hope, it's so stupid, it's like a curse. No, idiots, because truly it is hope. At the end of the day, you go to bed and you hope you're going to wake up tomorrow. At the end of the day, you wake up and you're like, oh shit, I woke up. I didn't know I was going to wake up. You woke up. It's like hope is it. You get out of your house and you hope you don't get into a car crash. That's just being humble and being true. I don't know. I think, and that is the wisdom of Epimetheus. It's like, dude, you're like thinking too much and of ahead, and I'm gonna do this to save this person. It's like, how about we just situate ourselves in this moment, right? This is all we got. Look at all this stuff. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it's sunny, sometimes we get hurricanes, and a lot of bad stuff happens, and tornadoes. But then, we pull through. I don't know. It's just that way of thinking that you've mentioned, Brian, triggered something in me, and it's because it's such a like, oh my God, like I have a doctorate in philosophy and literature, and this is what I think. And I thought about hope so much. And it's like, no, just like sit down and be a human being and forget about your degrees and think about it. Right. The wisdom of that, there's only left, it's hope. That's the point. The jar was always going to open, whether it was Pandora or Melanora or Depidora or whatever the hell her name was. It was going to happen because it's the womb. It's birthing children. Sometimes humans will suck and horrible things will happen, and sometimes you get the good ones and beautiful things happen. That's it. That's all we're playing with. And we ascribe all these like definitions to it that are so unnecessary. And then we look at it like that. It's like, oh God, all right. So we don't have to like be so torn about every little thing. We can just be like the Taoists.
Yep.
We can just be. And that's it.
I actually wonder if there might be a contradiction in what you just said here. So I'm going to try to steel man this bullshit ass point that you just talked about hating. So perhaps hope is the worst curse of them all. And so one of the ways that I go about sense making and finding truth is assuming that I don't know what the truth is. And so if other people are making points, then one of my favorite things to do is be like, okay, so what if that is true? And what is the world shaped like if that is true? And so sort of just, and I don't have to live there, but sometimes I find myself being like, oh, maybe I live here now. So we're going to go on a little journey here, and let's think about this. So what if maybe hope is the worst curse of them all, right? It's the one that sticks around. You never really get rid of it, right? So when I think about hope is, it could be an orientation toward a future state, which could in itself hold you back from the beingness that you talked about at the very end of your point there, right? Yeah. So there's a sense of like being present in the here and now, right? And hope, to my mind, it projects forward.
Indeed.
Like you hope that you wake up in the morning, for example, right? I'm going to bed now and it's bedtime, it's nighttime. Maybe I would do better if I didn't hope for the morning time, but rather laid in my bed and was here now.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why Prometheus is always born again. That's why. Because that's the Prometheus, like, seeing forward, being born again. So, well, let's say it's a curse. Let's say, yes, it is a curse because it creates this this foresight, this Promethean looking ahead. Okay, then yeah, you're right. Then that's why that's why it's a cycle. Prometheus is born again. So we come back to zero, and then we do the whole thing again. And then we do the whole thing again. Yeah, so maybe it is a curse. And so what? It's still hope. It's still hope. That's all we got. Like, it's I don't know. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters whether it's a curse, whether it's not. It goes in loops, right? And it's just this projecting forward, seeing, then falling again, and going through all of that, and then coming back up again, and then going through all that. So that's why I think Prometheus and Epimetheus are two sides of the same coin. Their stories are interlinked because it's just like coming back up again, because with the birth of hope, we get the birth of hoping for something better. Let me steal the fire so that we can do something better here. So yeah, it is born again. But is it a curse? I don't know. It's something you have to do. If someone, if a Prometheus is born and wants to grab that hope and use it in that way, then it is what it is. That's what they did. To them, it could be a curse. Mm-hmm. And then or it could not. I don't know. I don't think I don't think it matters. Whether it's a curse or not, it's still a beautiful thing. This is the life
That's
we
a
get.
very good point.
This is the life we get.
Whether it's a curse or not, it's a beautiful thing. I think is a really good thing to sit with. Like, that's a sort of koan that's good to like think with. For me, the thing I find interesting here, I'm gonna do one more sophomoric word game thing, which as you said earlier, Natalia, Pandora is all giving, all birth. She's everything, right? She gives birth to everything. And I think it's very easy and I think the story is guiding us a little bit away from, or trying to point us in the direction that, like, it's easy to think she gives birth to all sorrow, but she doesn't just give birth to all sorrow. No. She gives birth to all beauty. She gives birth to all hope. She gives birth to all everything. But I think that the one of the things that's making me excited about the retelling today is, for me, I think we get cursed when we separate the story, right? Yeah. When we're like, okay, so the Promethean story is the good story. That's the only story I'm going to pay attention to. And I'm just going to, that's when hope is a curse. Yeah. Right. When you don't Carrie, I was listening to the Emerald podcast, and they were talking about on clouds and natural law, like law in the sense of like the Aboriginal, indigenous law, right? The thing that makes the universe run, right? Yeah. And like when you're like, no, it's just me, I can do whatever I want. That's not helpful. But when the two brothers are talking, right? Like when the whole story is taken as one story
together.
Yeah. And we understand that, like, yes, there is the sadness, but yes, there is the hope, and they need each other to work. And that gift of the all, of the all is the beauty of this place. I think that's important to sit with. I think your statement about focusing on the Promethean story has gotten us where we are. Yeah. Is very much in that vein of like, because we forgot the other half, or we didn't want to look at the other half. We didn't want to see them as tied. We didn't want to see that both sides have sorrow, right? Yeah. And both sides have beauty. Yeah. So I don't know, but that moment of separating is interesting, but and so that's when hope is a curse, when it makes you think you can get rid of everything else, right? But it's a blessing when you're like, I'm going to sit with this and I'm going to hope that this can be beautiful, right? Like that's when it helps, right? So yeah, and I don't know. I'm now starting to wander, but like that was some really helpful thinking for me there.
Yeah.
The main time that hope is a curse is when it gets a president elected.
That's what we get into. Like,
I think about hope, and all I see is that Obama image.
The market.
Yeah.
What is it? The market. You said something about the market. Oh God, what is that word? It's that at work. The corruption of the market.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. All the fields are corrupted. I feel.
That's quite honest. I don't want to run off of that too fast, because I think that's actually a good thing to sit with for a second, like, right? Because like, man, I was all about round one Obama, right? Like I was on board, and anybody who hasn't
vote for Obama 2 times. I would like to let the world know. Just gonna throw that out there. I voted for Nader twice.
Fair.
I don't vote.
Nobody counted my vote twice.
I don't vote in Puerto Rico. I just saw it happen. Just like, look.
If anyone is guiltless here, it's not Natalia.
No.
I'm just like Pandora, stuck here. I'm kidding.
But there's something about, when I read Cornel West's, who hopefully is on my ballot, and if not, I can write him in. But like Cornel West's critique of Obama, right? Like, and what was really happening, right? And how the promises of the hope, you know what I mean, of the liberation of something happening here you're being sold a lie about hope, right?
Yeah.
Or your hope was being used against you to fuel something that wasn't true, right? Like that it blinded you, right? Mm. That's a good point. Like hope can blind you in that sense. It can, and again, like I'm doing the thing, but we're all connecting back to that divination question too. Like if you give the hopeful but not the honest answer, right, to your client, you're not giving them the full read. We're telling bad stories, right? We're telling bad stories when we give the hopeful but not honest answer, which is different than, as we said in the beginning, I don't want to destroy hope. Mm-hmm. I want to put it in its proper context, right? But I also don't want to mislead people with hope.
Yeah.
Should I start my small business? The geomancy says no, but maybe you could, right? Yeah. That is a curse. You have cursed someone with hope in that case.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you two-step, if you're like, no, but what do you really want? And how do we work for that? Right? What is possible in this field and time? What is available to me in my circumstances? What can I actually work with? And again, knowing yourself there too. Like, what can I actually do with the gifts I've been given? Because I am limited by my stars to some extent.
Indeed.
Indeed. And that's okay. right?
Yeah.
To your point, Natalia, that's okay. It's okay to live with the gifts and detriments that I have been given by my fates, but to still make the most of them, right? Like to do both is yeah. Now I'm getting fired up.
No, yeah, but I think that's the, I don't know, I don't want to generalize, right? That should be what everyone's doing, but I think that's, for me, that's the point, right? That's the point of your chart and the celestial signatures that we each are born with. And how do we make this sing? How do we make this sing in harmony and when, you know, so that when we die, it reverberates, you know, and we've done something good. We've seeded something good, beautiful. It's like, you know, perfection is not possible. I don't know. And I don't really, perfection is not possible, and I don't care about heaven or hell. So there you go. That's where I'm sitting with. I don't care about either of those two, and perfection is not possible. So what are we doing?
What'd you have there, Zamboni? I saw the finger. I saw the finger.
Okay, so what if perfection was the only thing that's possible? That is, it's not possible to deviate from perfection. Perfection is the only thing that exists.
Beautiful. So perfection is, I would read that for me, is perfection would be defined as making a life so that the signatures that I was born with are in harmony with what I've done, with my life, with my heart, and what I've tried to put forward. That would be perfection. But it would be a perfection defined only in specific terms. Another person might look at my life and say, that's not perfection. You're not Scrooge McDuck. You
Sure.
know?
Well, I have no love for haters, so that's okay. That's just going to roll right off my back. No problem at all.
I just want to point out that I think Scrooge McDuck is the real curse of this podcast.
I know it is. I just can't stop.
That's what I did.
I really like that word. I like those words. But no, I was being silly. But you know what I mean? It's something that we each define for ourselves. And that's actually very beautiful to think about it. Because then that would define perfection, the only inevitable thing. And it is that, you know, that's how I would read it. You know, and some people will go like meditate for 20 hours and do all these things, and that's good. That's perfection for them. That is themselves expressing themselves in this, you know, and that's actually beautiful. Yeah, I like it, Zamboni.
So when I am thinking about this kind of thing, then one of the lessons that I learned while drinking all of that ayahuasca that I drank was that I really got into moral relativism at a certain point, where like I simply am not the arbiter of good and evil. I don't know what good even looks like. Like evidently it's good for this guy Prometheus to get his liver eaten out every goddamn day. Like that's probably not what I would have chose, but like, okay, this is like the natural order of things. And who am I to say that the natural order of things is wrong, right? Like if a volcano erupts and destroys my town, then like it's not my preference, right? I can distinguish between what I think is preferable and what I think is not preferable, but good and evil does not enter into that picture because good and evil is too big for a measly human like myself to comprehend, right? It's not something that I can even touch. And so when I think about like the way that things come into being, I don't think causation is well understood by humans at all. Like causation, what even you can always, a toddler will teach you this immediately. Like you never get to the back of the question why, right? You just always come back to why that? And so causation doesn't really make sense to humans. And so because we don't really understand causation, we don't understand why things came to be the way that they are, or why a thing happened, then I don't have to touch that. All I can do is be like, oh, I like this thing or I don't like this thing. But no matter what happens in the world, and this gets back to what you said, Natalia, is that like, even when it's tragic, even when it's terrible, even when it's something that I don't prefer, then it is still beautiful and it is still perfect.
Yeah.
Because maybe my grubby hands aren't all over it. You know what I mean? Like it's too, my arms are too short to box with God, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much happening here that maybe where the direction that things are going is perfect already. And there's no getting away from that. What I love about thinking this way is that it's not possible for me to fuck it up.
Yeah.
It takes a weight off.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. I can do my little best. And frequently I like look at my best and I'm like, that's not very good. We're still fucking shit up. Right. I do that all the time, but it's okay if my best sort of sucks, because it only sucks to me. It only sucks as far as I can see what it is, you know, like in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't matter at all. And in the like really grand scheme of things, if we're looking at galaxies and universes and all like as big as it gets, then like it's doing the thing that it's doing, and God saw it was good, said it was good, and it was good.
I take that. It's funny. We both agree and entirely disagree. This is one of the great things about this, because I on the one hand do think that there's something really important about the underlying premises there, that like we are often unsure of larger effects. We are often blinded by our own standing. Like all this I find very true. And I think that the moving beyond or having better stories told about what we mean by good and evil is incredibly important. And preference as a limiting factor, where you're like, in all humility, I cannot guarantee you, in that sort of Tao way. We talk about the story a lot too, but like, you know, I got the horse, you know, it's great. Is it? You know what I mean? And the guy falls off and he's like, you broke my arm. That's horrible. And they're like, is it? And the guy comes to take the emperor comes to take your kid for the army. And he's like, well, I can't take a kid with a broken arm. So he's like, oh, that must have been great too. And you're like, is it? You know, so there's something about that I think is that humility is really important.
Yeah.
At the same time, what I am drawn to is in part because for me, my way is very deeply rooted in moving from compassion. And again, this is not saying what you said was uncompassionate, but like, you know what I mean? What I'm saying is that like, and in fact, included a fair amount of compassion for yourself and for other people in that message of like, it's okay, right? You're not fucking up. That is actually a very compassionate place to be.
Yeah.
What I find in my heart, though, is this feeling that there's so many elements of the world that are out of harmony.
Yes.
That I feel this pull to help with that, to restore that. Yeah. Now, Zamboni can make a very strong argument, I'm going to make for him, that is my way, right? But that's the piece I want to include there.
I want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, go for it. Jump in.
Because I want to talk about purpose here, right? Yeah. Because I have been thinking a lot about purpose. Like what is my own purpose? What is the purpose of humanity and stuff like this? And then sometimes I like zoom out a little bit and I get to thinking about systems thinking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so sometimes people talk about like grazing cattle, for example, or like large game, so, you know, buffalo and this kind of thing. And so what part of what their purpose seems to be is shitting on the ground and fertilizing what's going on there, right? And so in the buffalo's head, there's presumably, I don't know what goes on in buffalo's heads, but presumably it's not about like making the whole ecosystem function and everything. Like, it's not about harmony or none of that shit. Like, buffalo are eating grass and shitting because it's what they feel like doing. They feel like eating grass and then they feel like taking a shit. And so they do those things. And then when you zoom out to the systems level perspective, then you see that something greater is taking place, right? And so I wonder if humans have a similar sort of situation. So if there's a feeling of like, I am compelled to do this thing because it feels good to me,
Yes.
then that thing may be embedded in a larger systems theory.
Indeed.
Yes, and I agree with that very much.
Yeah.
You know, and to your point about the buffalo, you know, I'm reasonably certain so it's interesting, right? So when we look at the Kropotkin stuff about cooperation across species, right? And mutual aid as part of the like natural environment of colder climates. There is an understanding of like, you can be a bad wolf by eating too many buffalo. You know what I mean? You can be a bad buffalo by not moving with the herd, right? By staying in one place too long. Like, so there are these law elements of being being buffalo. Right. I'm going to take good and evil out as much as I can here. Being buffalo means you have to move. If you don't move, you're not being buffalo in a way that is disharmonious to the system.
Yeah.
Being wolf means you have to eat a certain amount of buffalo, but if you eat too many, you're not wolf anymore. You're something else. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I align my feeling of understanding that there is injustice or unlawful or unharmonious elements, is to say, as human, I feel this and I feel moved to do a human thing inside the system. But I do love the humility of, I don't know how what the larger picture of that is, right? And being honest that I don't know that, while at the same time being like, I am the divinity of the universe. In fact, I'm the only one I know of personally that is me, right? And not, I don't want to cede my divinity and my possibility of all knowing just because I currently at this moment am not currently omniscient, right? But yeah, so this is why I say we agree entirely, and it sounds like we disagree, but it's not.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a buffalo or a god in this conversation, Natalia? Do you want to jump in?
No, I agree. I don't know. When Zamboni was saying that, I thought, are you pointing a finger? Am I being the moral relativist? And maybe I am. I've been accused of that. But I don't know, you know, I'd rather, I don't know, maybe it's born out of suffering, right? I have to admit, my opinions are born out of a particular life, my life, right?
Right.
The way I see it and the way I read the story of, for example, that Epimetheus and Prometheus is born out of that. You know, what do we do with suffering? You know, there are things. Yeah. And so this is where I found for myself to answer that question. What do I do with it? Because whether I am God is in me, right? Or not. Okay, cool. But in this body, I do not know all things. And I can barely move I don't know, I can't move a mountain, right? I can, you know what I mean? Like, I can't move a car. Like, where's my strength? You know what I mean? I'm this puny human, and this cosmos of interconnecting links and spirals and things going on, and many weavings and all these things going on. What do I know, really? And so what do I do in the face of all this suffering? And I'm being very serious. Like the other day I read this article that I didn't know about because I can't do these things. I cannot read these things about what happened at Bikini Atoll. I didn't know that. And I was reading this article about these researchers were going back in to investigate how these animals flourished again after these bombings and these nuclear tests happened there. And I'm like, how do I sit, literally, Zamboni and Brian, it makes me cry. It's like these things like do not leave my head. I still think about the elephant that was sentenced to death, electrocution, because he killed that person that kept burning cigarette butts on him. I still think this plagues my mind. This is what occupies my mind, all this suffering. So what do I do with it? Like, that's me. Maybe people are more Promethean and they don't think about these things, right? Maybe they don't. Me, I cannot. I have to answer this question for myself to be able to hold on to hope. And so this is how I hold on to hope. And I say completely reject humans as above it all. Completely reject it. Completely say no to that. No, because we are in a system. Not even. I hate that word. We are in interconnected weavings going on, and harmonies and disharmonies and spirals, and all these things are happening in different, like in this web, like Indra's web, this web of things that are happening, And so this is where the medicine is for me, right? So, am I the buffalo here or not? I have all of those things and more. Like, I don't know. This is where I situate myself and my understanding in a way that helps me hang on to hope. That's it, because my mind, my heart cannot handle all of that, and I think about the people and then the mines and then all this stuff and the killings, and my heart cannot handle it. It cannot. Some people can handle it. They have more coldness in them. I don't know. I cannot. So the only way I look at it and I say, you know what, Saturn, you are the greatest teacher. You are the greatest teacher. That's it. And this is it. This is it. Like I have no response except to just, like Epimetheus, say, this is it. This is it. Now I'm inside this cave, and the only thing next to me is hope. That's it. That's where I situate myself, and that's where I situate my art too. Because I think about this a lot. Why am I creating? What do I want it to look? I look at all these like wonderful people doing incredible art, and I'm like, should my art look like this? Should I make it look like this? Should I go for this? Should I make X amount of money? It's like, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I can't, because I just can't. I just see no point. And so this is how I guess in your what you said, this is how I go for my definition of perfection and how I live my life. Yeah. That's it.
It's interesting to see or to listen to each of us sit with this mystery and offer back, what it means to be Brian sitting with this mystery, or Natalia sitting with this mystery, or Zamboni sitting with this mystery. And, speaking of making art for the community, you know what I mean? Like, these are the reason we put out these conversations is so there's more conversations.
Yeah.
And so I really hope that if you're listening, dear listener, that you too are having an interesting time sitting with your mystery, and that, you'll share it a little bit too, because I learned so much from the two of you just listening to how you sit with this. And it's something I find beautiful and really important to do. And it does give me hope, but more than that, I think for me, this particular moment's about beauty, right?
Yeah.
The beauty of getting to hear from two people who really do the work, where the mystery's taking them. So I appreciate that. So I'm gonna do the Natalia move and say thank you both I appreciate that.
Indeed. Very grateful. Very grateful
Thank
for the
you.
opportunity.
Yes, thank you for this conversation and for listening to my wild ramblings.
Yeah, that's why we had you on, so you would get wild and ramble. That's how we like it around here. So to the people who loved what you were talking about and would love to get a reading from you, or maybe buy not a deck of cards, but maybe a piece of artwork or something like this, they can go to natalia-lee.com. What else is available there? Tell us about it.
Well, that's about it. Readings, and then I will be putting some cards up for sale, like very few, less than 10. And then other than that, I am hoping to add like my artwork, like a portfolio. And what I really want to do that I've been working toward after Ramadan is more writing. I wanna do like this kind of hybrid, kind of like telling stories, but like voicing them and also writing them and doing like a mishmash of things with more writing. I just want to do more writing and maybe do like printed books, like little zines. I've been thinking a lot, basically, but yeah, just go there. Anything that happens will be put on there. I have a newsletter too, so it's all there. I have nowhere else, no social media.
You got to go to the site. You got to dig for that treasure, and it's there waiting for you when you get in.
Indeed.
Get on the newsletter is what I heard.
Get on the newsletter. Yeah.
Get on the
that
newsletter.
Yes.
Because things are coming up. You know.
Yes.
It's about to go down.
Yes. Like Prometheus.
Yeah, word. We're looking forward out here, and you're gonna have to deal with whatever comes your way.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So, if I wanted to go get a Geomancer reading, what would I do about that?
Well, you could come by wilkinsbryan.com and you'd be quite happy to get one. And believe it or not, Zamboni has lightly teased, bullied, encouraged, along with Jess, who has also been on me about this, to actually get the website scheduling and everything else updated. So there'll be a new look to the website coming out in the next couple of days. Jess has been doing some great work on the designs there and stuff. So we got some new stuff coming. And,
shout out to Jess, who refused to come on this program. That's okay. Fine.
I know. We'll get her. We're just gonna wear her down a bit. Yeah, so please come by there. And if I were to try to book an astrology reading that would help me have insight into the stories in my life, where would I do that, Zamboni? Where would I get that done?
Indeed. You would go to ZamboniFunk.com. And there at ZamboniFunk.com, you would be able to find two major options. You can get a 60-minute Zoom reading where we can talk back and forth. There's also a much cheaper and easier option, which is a 10-minute reading, which is in the style of my weekly forecast. So I'll like talk to the camera and answer your question and run through your chart there in a video format. So that's super easy to do. You can always find me on the social media. I am not like Natalia. Natalia has washed her hands. And I am grubby as hell out here on TikTok, which got banned today, I think. But I'm still out there.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
We got Instagram out there. We got YouTube. That's probably where you're watching this video. All of those things, ZamboniFunk in all the places. That's where it's going. That's where you can find it. So thank you to the listeners for being here. Thank you for rocking with us through this wild, rambling, and meandering time. We are having so much fun, and thank you for having so much fun with us. If you dig what we do, feel free to give us a little thumbs up, send a tip. You can put a little comment in the bottom there. I always love reading y'all comments and get a little community going on out here. Find the others. Appreciate all y'all. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing y'all next time. Peace and blessings, family.